I was out in the Fens looking for new locations to photograph. I thought this little scene showed some promise, but it wasn't what I expected. Still, no point walking away. Half the fun of photography is putting yourself to the test when things don't work out the way you expected. I just love this scenery. These reeds just pop a different colour into the landscape. The thing that I always find a little bit difficult is they sit low quite often because they're in the ditches, and it's sometimes difficult to bring them into a shot. But really the thing that was on my mind this afternoon is that little scene in the landscape there, and I don't know how that's going to work for me at the moment, but that's where I'm making my way. And look at this soil, look how dark it is. This is a feature of the Fens. This beautiful, lush, peaty soil. Approaching this, and the building is very much in shadow from this side. So I'm going to see if I can walk beyond it and get some light on it. What looked like a whole building from the road is nothing but a wreck, and it's not that old. Nevertheless, it is part of this landscape, and I'm here, so I'm going to try and incorporate this into an image in some way. I'm just walking around it now. There's no actual footpath, so I'm not certain exactly where I'm going to shoot from. There's a lot of this dried reed and grass, and the name escapes me at the moment of what's left over from last year. So from a low angle, that's going to intrude onto the shot. So let me just have a bit more of a look. So here I am, right on the other side, and I think there is something of a picture here with that lovely sky behind. We're just after midday, so I mean it is far from a classic time of day as far as landscape photography is concerned, but I'm liking the way these dry grasses, they're not grasses, they're part of the cow parsley, I would think, or something of that nature that grew last year and has all died back and remained largely undisturbed. So kind of got those two paler patches leading in to the derelict building, some nice shadows on the wall, and just a little pop of colour from that drum of what I imagine to be irrigation equipment. Taking a moment or two just to find the precise position that I want for this shot. So you can see me set up there. Now there's a couple of things I'd show you on the back of the screen, but I'm not sure how good it's going to be with the sun directly behind me that you'll be able to see the scene. But something that's encroaching on the scene is this plastic bag down here, and I've got no problem at all. It's not part of the landscape. I've got no problem at all in moving that. I'm not going to use my hands to do it because I've got no idea what was in it, and not everything in the country is friendly. A lot of the unpleasant stuff comes in plastic bags, so that's now out of shot. There's also something over here with the top on it, and that looks like it might be more difficult to move. It might even have that post on it. That concrete post is stuck on it. And this blue plastic bag here, actually it's a bit more than a bag, it's a tarpaulin of some kind. That's also slightly in shot. I've just spotted some shotgun cartridges there. Tells me a little bit about what happens here. I imagine that they shoot out over these fields. Look at that scenery. Stunning, absolutely stunning. Okay, back to why we're here, taking a picture. So I'm just going to pop it on screen. Hopefully you can see the histogram there. I work with the histogram a lot. I use the scales and that for reference points, but the histogram tells me an awful lot about what's going to happen, and it's very rare that the final exposure on a raw image for me will end up being exactly where I left it when I get back, not least because the profiles sometimes are just a little bit too strong. But that's not really a conversation for today. So you can see the picture there. So here's the image straight out of the camera, and I'm showing it to you in Canon's own DPP software, which is the native software for the camera files. And I think it gives the best representation of the image. It's not that I don't like Adobe, I just don't think it accurately reproduces the image as I saw it in camera. This is a really useful piece of software, but I don't want to talk about it too much today. I just wanted to show you the image, and you can see the settings as I took it here. And I'm going to process this raw image in the DPP software and prepare it then for further editing. Here's the image again after I've made a few adjustments ready for the raw conversion. And some of the adjustments will be very obvious and some of them perhaps not so. You'll see that I've increased the exposure, reduced the saturation, and I've adjusted the contrast curve or gamma curve a little. Again, not to go too much into that in the space of this video, but overall the image is now a bit brighter, a little bit softer, and the colours aren't quite so strong. The white balance is still as it was set. I've taken advantage of using the Canon auto lighting optimizer, but it makes a minimal difference. There are some other settings in the background that you can't see in this frame. I'll show you the completed image a bit later on in this video, but for now let's move on and do a little bit more photography, and I'll talk some more about raw conversion with some of the images that I'm going to show you. And that tree, the left-hand one, is catching my eye at the moment. I'm going to walk in that direction because the drain that I was walking alongside when I first left the car continues in the field beyond, and I've also got more trees here with some character. I've got the road in the background there. You can probably see the traffic passing by. That doesn't really concern me too much. And here we've got what looks like a badger set. Plenty of excavation work going on there. Imagine this is quite easy pickings for a burrowing animal. This soil looks very soft. And have another picture here, just maybe making that piece of kit a bit of a focal point. So that's a possibility. And I am treading on this land, and I always try and stay on the margins of a field. I find it difficult to here. Hope nobody will mind. And here we are. So I'm not going to be able to go any further than this. Some nice colours on that tree, and let's just go around this one and have a look at that first tree that caught my eye. And that is quite a nice picture there. So that's definitely a possibility from this side, but if I go the other side, the tree's going to be lit by the sun, which is up there, and ideally I would be on the other side of this drain. It's too big for me to cross by foot. Certainly today I think probably at any time, to be honest with you. It's quite wide, quite deep, quite a lot of water in there, so I'm not about to go on an expedition, but I'd be able to, I think, bring it into the picture a little bit, not so much to the centre of the frame, but it's going to be not as prominent in the picture as I would like. The tree looking very different, and there's the building in the background, so that might also be a different perspective for this. I'm just going to come a bit further away, and that's quite a nice fenland scene there, and I've got some ditch. Now it's fair to say there's a bit of me wishing I'd come out with my ultra wide lens today, but I think that is going to be a picture there, so I'm just going to cut back across, pick up the kit and walk over to here and set up again. I've now resorted to the time-honoured wide angle effect, which is to move further away. You can see I'm all the way back here now, so I'm probably another, or I don't know, 40 feet, 50 feet past where I was, maybe not as much as that, and I'm looking at the sky is holding its own. Got that nice tree line in the distance, very short but nevertheless distinctive against this very flat landscape. And so here's my shot, and again, if I just show you the histogram, no difficulties whatsoever getting everything well exposed, and with this being a raw file, I should be able to bring, I was going to say some detail back in the sky, but there is a little bit there. The better sky is away to the right, the sky that we looked at earlier. So let's get this shot in the bag. Here's a shot again, straight out of camera, straight into Canon DPP, and you'll notice to look at it, it does appear to be a darker image. I'm not absolutely certain really why that was the outcome. Obviously I was shooting more across the light than with the light behind me, so I think that's certainly a factor. There is also the fact that I was trying to make sure that I held on to the sky, because it was quite bright in the paler areas where there was less blue. And here's the image ready to process. Once again, increased the exposure, made it quite bright, but in order to hold on to that sky, I brought the highlight setting down. I find in DPP the highlight setting doesn't have a huge effect on the highlights. It's very subtle, but that holds or helps to hold the integrity of the highlight, if you like. I've also had to bring the color saturation down a little bit extra because it was a darker file. The exposure, the color saturation was a little bit stronger, so that's brought down. Otherwise it's broadly similar to the other adjustments I've made. So due to a little bit of pilot error, you didn't actually see me take this photograph, but I wanted to include it in the final set anyway because I was quite pleased with it. Here you see it just as it came out of the camera in the DPP. I really wanted to get an image that featured that lovely sky and to try and make the most of it against the landscape. And here's the shot after I've amended the settings or changed the settings in the DPP software. You'll see it's very much brighter. The sky, really pushing it as far as I can without blowing it out. And you might think that, well, if I were using another sort of software, I could use a mask to prevent that. And yes, that's the truth, I could, but I think there's a price to be paid for that. So just trust me when I say this is exactly how I want to do it in this particular case. The scene now is bright, and bear in mind this was not long after midday. It was almost shadowless. There were darker spots in the earth, but this image now, as you see it, much more reflects the level of brightness that was out there as I stood in the field. So quite happy with how this is from that point of view. A bit of work to be done once it's been processed. And again, I'll show you that final image a little bit later on in the video. As I walked back, I spotted this little fella sunbathing on the soil, beautifully warm soil. So I'm heading back to the car. I've seen one more shot that I really want. The sky behind me now has developed quite nicely. The sun is right in the middle of it, and that's going to be blown out, and that will just have to be the way it is for this shot. And the foreground is likely to be solid shadow. I've managed to lower the ISO all the way down to ISO 100, so with a bit of luck I might be able to pull just enough detail out of the shadow without turning it into complete mush. And here it is. And you can see from the red and blue patches that the blue shows where the shadows have completely blocked out. In fact, I think I've got my settings on this just above the absolute black settings. So it's not solid black in there. And at ISO 100, that gives me an opportunity to pull something back from the shadows quite well. I've probably darkened it a little more than I needed to, but what I wanted to do was not have the sun be this huge expanse of white across the sky, and try and see if I can hold some detail in it. So let's have a look at the conversion and see how I got on. And so here it is, prepared for conversion, and as you can see, I've been able to lighten the shadows quite a bit. One of the sad things about this is that typically where you get shadows like this, you don't get much in the way of punchy colors. So once I'm editing the conversion, I'm going to have to work hard at bringing those back. Hopefully I've done enough work with the sky, and by enough work, it's really not a great deal of input, just a few tweaks to be able to hold some detail in that and try and capture the moody atmosphere that was there when I was taking the photograph. So I'm about to wrap the video up in a second, and while I'm talking about that, I'll show you the final output from all these images. So I've got a feeling this might have turned into a lengthy video by the time I've finally finished today. If you've made it to the end, and I think I keep saying that on the end of my videos, then thank you very much. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found it inspiring a little bit. Not so much me and what I do, but this area. The trips that I have made out here, I've never seen another photographer. I've not even seen anybody on the roadside with their smartphone out snapping the sky or the weather systems. Today the weather very benign, but that was just what I needed really, to be able to break out and really spend some time thinking about what I'm doing and exploring. Hopefully by now you've seen some of the images that I've taken today. Apologies that my video skills are still developing. I'm trying to work my photography in alongside the video, or trying to work the video in alongside my photography is probably a better expression. But I feel it's coming along. I feel I'm learning my way. I'm grateful for any feedback whatsoever, not necessarily about my photography per se, but about the video and whether you find it engaging, whether you're able to follow along. Good and bad, I really don't mind. But once again, thank you for watching, and hopefully not too long before I've got some more content on this channel. Bye.